Good morning, CLC. I invite you now, in this moment, to open yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take a nice deep breath in, receiving the love and the light that surrounds you. And as you release the breath, give back to the universe all that no longer serves you. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take another nice, deep, cleansing breath in, breathing in love, breathing in oxygen, breathing in life itself. And as you release the breath, allow your body to just relax in this moment and allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
All right. Good morning. So what would a world at peace look like? What would it feel like? Awesome. Let's go with that. I should have a board up here to write down your responses, because to begin with the end in mind, you know, we get hit with events, we get hit with the need to react, the emotional, primal feelings that come up in us when we see what's going on in the world, and we go with that because we don't know we have anywhere else we can go. So we go with that, and we feel awful, and then we feel angry, we feel outraged, then we feel sad, then we feel conflicted, then we feel this whole spectrum of things, all in reaction to a world where people are at each other's throats. What if we spent some time imagining what a world at peace would really look like and feel like? Awesome, yeah. And more detail than that. What would we do with the time that we spend hating? What would we do with the time we spend attacking and defending? How would that time be occupied? What would we say, well, you know, I'm not attacking, I'm not defending, I'm not party to this situation, but we all have our resentments, we all have our angers and our grudges and stuff that we harbor for years. What would we do with the space in mind and heart that we occupy with those if they weren't present, if something else were in their place? This is all we're asked to think about in a teaching like this. This is the only thing that you're going to hear from the literature or from me of a specific nature of what to do to respond to all of this, because we make up our own minds. If there's sides to be taken, then by habit we take sides. But there's a better place to go than that, and that's to go into the center of the self, and that's why we're talking about mysticism this month, and the works of this particular woman, Evelyn Underhill, speak to this. The idea that there is what she calls the transcendent fact, with a capital F, capital T, capital F, the transcendent fact, which is the essential self. And back of the essential self is the particular temporal, spatial self that gets all worked up at things and that has a million obligations and conflicting ideals and ambitions and so on as we process our lives in the world. We're sitting there. You know, the question gets brought up by recent teachers as well as these old-timers. Are we ever fully present? Are we ever fully present inside ourselves? Are we sitting there thinking about what's yet to come? I was reminded of when I went to Reverend David's graduation from ministerial school. I gave a little talk to the graduates. And it was great fun, you know. And I had like, what was it, David, like 12 minutes or 15 maybe to speak, which is less than I usually get. So at your peril. So I'd made all these notes because, you know, there's so much you want to say. And I didn't know whether to be funny. I didn't know whether there'd be time to be funny, to clean up if I was funny, you know, hey, I didn't really mean it. Because I was going to start out by saying, turn back now. But I thought some might actually do that, and that would kind of, I'd never be invited back to do anything like that again. So anyway, I made all of these notes of things to say. And one of the things that didn't make it into the final version, I don't think, was that there was a group of already licensed, ordained ministers there. I think most of them, they were either local or they had been instructors of the ones who were graduating. And what I wanted to point out was that all of the people in this room who work in ministry, this was on a Friday night, wasn't it? I think it was a Friday night. I said, all the people who work in ministry, they're about 80% present in the room with you tonight, celebrating your graduation. The other 20% is writing their Sunday talk. And when they're in the middle of their Sunday talk, well, maybe not in the middle because you get distracted, but the minute the thing's over, you're thinking about your next class, and you're thinking about your next thing, and so on. Okay, this isn't just true of ministry. This is true of anybody in the workforce. This is true of anybody with any kind of obligation, any kind of occupation, that we're fragmented. We're fragmented. So we sit there, and the sun rises, the sun sets, the earth turns, and we miss a lot of stuff because we're so on point with what it is we have to deliver. Consequently, our delivery suffers. What we're giving out into the world is half-baked because we're not there with it. There are moments when we're there with it, when we're being artistic, when we're being imaginative, creative. You fall into a project. Do you remember the last time this happened to you? You got so excited about something. It could have been for money or it could have been just for fun. Whatever it was, you just had to do this. You read this book or learn this task, learn this language or skill or something like that, and you threw yourself into it and time stopped. And time expanded where you needed it to expand. And you were present, and you knew. You were like in a different gear. You were in, well, they call it the zone. You were in the zone. And then that ended. That faded, and then you were back to the kind of the daily grind of paying bills and moving things along. We live, though we are one, in two worlds at once. We live in the material, we live in the spiritual, and that's part of the beautiful paradox of life is the interplay between these two. So there are going to be bills to pay, and there are going to be simple and repetitive tasks to undertake, but there's a place we can go in consciousness that is a place of absolute stillness, a place of absolute stillness, the center of the self, the center of the self. How do we achieve this? Through practice, through practice. It's the building of a new habit. It's not conferred on us by anyone else. It's something we have to do for ourselves. And we say, oh, not another habit I have to build, not another task. But this one incorporates and encompasses all the others. This is the key to healthy living. This is the key to effective living, is to go to the source of ourselves. Now, we've gotten so used to thinking that source is outside ourselves, because this is what most of us were taught, you know, that we go kind of hat in hand to this presence up in the sky, and we say, you know, do this for me and do that for me, and we barter and so on, which is on the right track. It's just in the wrong direction. Where we really take it is into the center of the self, because in the self is where the divine is found. Say neither lo here nor lo there, for behold, the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's within you. Not as the ego, not as the attachments, not as the little self, you know, that kind of putters around, but as the spark of the divine that's present within all creation. It's present within every part of creation, but the part of creation that's you and me, that part of creation is conscious. That part of creation participates with it. It's in this floor, too. But the floor just gets to be the floor, and it doesn't really have a lot of choice, so far as we know, in that matter, and it doesn't give a lot of input, you know. But we, on the other hand, things move in sort of a hierarchy, it seems, up through the mineral and the plant and the animal and all this, and they come to us, and here we are. And we have a vote. We have a choice in the matter as to how to feel. Do I want to feel connected today? Do I want to let bygones be bygones? Do I want to forgive? Do I want to embrace? Do I want to welcome? And so on. We have a choice there. And that choice, the ability to make that choice, not just the right choice, but the ability to make that choice is the spark of the divine in us. That's why we are co-creators with the infinite. So we go on choosing, and sometimes we choose mistakenly, don't we? We say, I know just the thing. I know just what I want to say. I know just what I want to do. And it goes south. And so what do? Well, we learn from that. And we say, well, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to try something different. Or we say, I haven't been punished enough, so I'm going to... Okay? I've been bad and wrong, and I deserve more punishment, so I'm going to keep doing what hasn't worked until I feel something, until the pain is so great that I know I've accomplished something. We make up, in other words, rules for ourselves. We make up a path to follow, you know, and sometimes, at least to the outside observer, it looks like it works, and other times it doesn't. All of that's well and good, and this is where a teaching like this one doesn't get in your hair. You know, it doesn't get in your business about, well, what kind of choices are you making today? It's like, make them, don't make them, you know, see how they fly. Our job here is just to say there is such a thing. There is such a thing. I can't describe to you what the center of your self feels like. That would be completely, I have no clue. And if I pretended to have a clue, that would be completely wrong and manipulative and overstepping and, you know, say all kinds of things about it. But the fact of the matter is everybody has direct, unmediated access to the source of the source of the soul, the source of everything within themselves, to go to that source and just be reminded who we are. And the expression I used 4-6 weeks ago or something, it's kind of caught on. I've gotten some feedback from this, and it's cool. You know, people are listening. It's like, well, you said this, and I think that's, sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't, but at least people are listening. But the I am becoming. The I am, becoming. That's what the center of the soul looks like and feels like, generally, across the board for every one of us. Now, what is it exactly we are? And what is it exactly we wish to become? Well, that's a personal matter. Shakes out each one of us. So I just wanted to get that off my chest, if in fact I did. And I've already kind of worked in some Evelyn Underhill with you without you knowing it as I was going through that. She says, trust your senses. And then people will say, well, don't our senses deceive us? And she says, well, yes, they do. Our senses deceive us, but she says more usually what deceives us about our senses is not exactly what they register, it's how we interpret what they register. And then we blame them for it. And then we blame our senses for it. So we take in the world and we make up a story about it. She doesn't exactly call it that, but she talks all around that. We make up a story. We make up a script based on how things are. And we quantify and we label and we categorize incoming experience so that we think that's our function. That's not only our primary function, that's our sole function in this life, is to label incoming experience. And I was joking around with you last week or the week before when it had been a really pretty day, and I said, well, this was actually the 7th prettiest day on, right? I mean, just this is kind of what we do. And I was thinking yesterday was just a gorgeous day, and today is too. Which one is the more gorgeous? And I need to develop a quantifying mechanism for that, the barometric pressure, who cares? Okay, right? Unless you're a meteorologist, in which case you can go in your zone as a meteorologist and completely trip out on doing that, which is wonderful. But if you're not, why play that game? Why decide to judge people? That's more significant, isn't it, than judging the prettiness of a day. Why decide you were appointed the one to judge everybody? And yet we get it young that this makes you a powerful human. We even, what's really kind of twisted? We get it young that this makes you a leader. That this makes you a leader. If you can size people up and figure people out, that's what leadership is. But when you do that, you're separating yourself from the people you would lead. You're distancing yourself from people. You're putting people in a lesser than position to yourself. That's not leadership. That's fraud. That's fraud. So what do we do instead? Be present in the moment. Greet each person as a new day. Not just the new people. Because a lot of times we judge new people based on previous people, right? Well, you remind me old so-and-so, and I didn't like them, and they haven't been around for years, but you remind me of them, and so I'm going to respond to you accordingly. We can all look at that and see, well, that's silly, But how about the same people? How about if it's old so-and-so who comes walking in your life? And it's like, oh, I know, we're going to pick up where we left off. How do you know that person didn't have this epiphany experience? How do you know that person didn't encounter the source of their own soul overnight? Okay? It just blossomed like the lotus. How do you know? Until you listen, until you are present with them. How do we know that things aren't different? Because we expect them to be the same. So what are we dealing with? Not things, but expectations. We're dealing with the inside of our own expectations. And she goes on and on in beautiful words, and I really encourage you to read her. And if you don't want to spend the money on the book, which I must admit we do have in the bookstore, you can get, because it's so long ago, this particular book, Practical Mysticism, it's over 100 years ago it was published, right? During the First World War. It's in the public domain. You can get a free PDF of it. If I wanted to make things too easy for you, I'd give you the link in the weekly emails. I may do that because I really want you to read this short book, and she writes beautifully. Trust me, it's not dull. You may not agree with every word, you may not practice it and all this, but it's a darn good read, a darn good read. So we have the fragmented self. We have all of this busyness going around in our minds. We go to the center of the self, and what do? We just stand there and we listen, and in that we learn the skill of listening to people. We learn the skill of listening even to nature, listening to, the birds, the migrating birds right now. You're hearing all kinds. I don't know if it's still happening. Might be a little late in the season for this, or maybe it hasn't happened yet. I'm not that tuned into it. I should be, but I'm not. But in previous years, when I've been more, attuned, different birds who don't live here come through here, and you hear bird voices you don't normally hear. They're not mockingbirds and nightingales and, the usual population of bird critters that we have in this part of the world. So you listen to them, and it's like hearing foreign languages. It's like, what are they saying to each other? Now we're going to go down there, we're going to take a left, and we're going to head here. To be aware of that kind of thing. What does that do for you? Does it make you a bird watcher? Does it make you an ornithologist? Maybe. what it definitely does is it reminds you that there is intelligence present everywhere to meet the case, to meet the necessary requirements of those who have it. And so birds don't do calculus because they don't have to. And good for them, right? Birds know what birds need to know to be effective birds. We know and have access to the information to make us effective humans if we'll just listen. And this is something we're talking about in the Monday night class too. The one mind, of which we are a part, has all the information in it that you could ever possibly want, including the information you don't feel you need yet. It's all there. And when you go to that and you're open to it, it will flow into your being. You will know what to say and what to do. You will know how to perform certain tasks and things because somebody has done this already. And it's there in that mind. It's a storehouse of limitless information. So she says, in building a new habit, we're educating a layer of consciousness within ourselves that is up to this point lain fallow. She's English, you know. Lain fallow. In other words, unplowed, unseeded, undealt with as a crop-yielding acreage. Lain fallow. There's a part of us that's lain fallow. So we got to dig it up a little. We got to stir it up a little bit. And it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And I think it's just honest to say, in spiritual work, it's uncomfortable to start, but it gets easier. It's like really anything. It's like building calluses to play the guitar. It's an example. I think it's a good analogy, you know, because it's different for us to stir up the self in this way, because we're so used to reacting and we're so used to judging our own efficiency in life by our reactions. Because, again, this is how we've been taught. You remember when you were a little kid on the playground and somebody came up and maybe they bullied you a little and your friends stood around and they said, "Are you going to take that? You going to take that?" And you're like, "Well, wow, if I take that, my friends won't like me anymore, you know, because I'll wimp out. So, no, I'm not going to take it." And so you rise to the occasion. And now there's this back and forth kind of conflict, and I don't know, maybe even punches are thrown, and somebody wins, and somebody has a bloody nose, and it's like, and you get the sense, whether this is actual or virtual, the way this happens, you get the sense this is how you succeed in life. As trouble comes, and you punch it in the nose, and you go on, and so you get, now you're, you know, 40, 50, 60, 80 years old, and you're no longer punching people in the nose or being punched in the nose, but you are in your heart. You're enlisting surrogates to do it in mind. When these people get what they deserve, you know, and it sickens us. It hurts us to the core. But again, we've been trained. This is what it means to be you. So to have a new body of information come along and provide a whole different direction is very disturbing. This is a very disturbing teaching. And I was talking about that with another group. We said, you know, we're 100% responsible for our experience of life, not 98 or 82 or something, 100% responsible for our experience of life. We can't control everything that happens, but we can absolutely manage how we respond to what happens. And that's new thought. That's literal new thought. Because the old thought was, you got to feel a certain way. Are you going to take that? You got to feel a certain way based on what's happening. So she continually, through her book, Evelyn Underhill, is telling the reader in a very elegant 100-year-ago English way, okay, she's constantly telling the reader, I understand if this is disturbing to you. I understand if you really don't feel you want to do this, but I've got to say it. And of course, if you've made it that far to where she's saying it, you're hooked. And you're starting to work on yourself in this certain way. All the ambitions and affections, tastes and prejudices are fighting for your attention. Your poor, worried consciousness flies to and fro amongst them. But all this is happening on the periphery of the mind, where it touches and reacts to the world of appearance. At the center there is a stillness which even you are not able to break. There the rhythm of your duration is one with the rhythm of the universal life. There your essential self exists. And she says you have been previously from time to time snatched to that center. And this is talking about the surprise mystical experience I brought up last week, where she says you're sitting in the theater, let's say, or you're sitting at a concert or something, and you're listening to the music, and you're sitting at the concert, and you're thinking about the music, and you're thinking about the dinner you're going to have after it, or the drive home, or things you got to do tomorrow and next week and the rest of your life. And she says, in that moment, in your six and halfpenny seat, you're all of a sudden you're liberated. All of a sudden you get the music, all of the show. You get what's going on. You're there. Nothing. You're not aware of the seat you're sitting in, or the house you live in, or the life you have. You are so fully in that moment. Now, can this be sustained? Absolutely not. And it's not meant that it should be. And this is part of the black and white thinking that deters people from this kind of thing, is they say, oh, mysticism, that means I have to go live in a hut, and retire from the world and just be fully present all the time, and like, what's in it for me, and how do I prosper if that's the case? This is meant as the same. It's a Sabbath thing. It really is. If you can give this a seventh of your time, if you can give it a 10th, if you can give it a 20th, it's worth it. It's why we come here on Sundays, actually or virtually. We come into this place to recharge with the idea that there's somewhere in the self that we can go where we can connect with that which made us, with the source of all life, the thing that the rest of the time is an abstraction to us. That's God, and what is God, and where is God, and can God, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, and that kind of thing. And we go into all of this theological marginalia when what we're really seeking is to stand before what they in Scripture is called the great throne, to stand before the great throne, to go right to that source and just be known, to know it as we are known. Okay, just a couple more things here. So she says, seen from the true center of personality instead of from the usual angle of self-interest, scattered parts form themselves in order. And that's where the pragmatic part of this circles back round. When we do this, we don't retire from the world. The world makes sense. On some level, it makes sense, or at least in the sense that we know what to do as our next step. How to help. What can I do? Often we look so far away. We say, well, I want to help on the other side of the world. And we got a hungry neighbor, or we got a hungry relative, We've got somebody right there at hand that we could do something for. And to know what to do next means listening, again, means getting quiet, going to the source of the self and saying, put me in, coach. How can I help? What can I do? Might be something that you'd previously considered. Often it's something you had not. There are things that people need. I'll never forget, this is one example of countless, but when we had I think the first time I saw this was in Katrina in New Orleans, where the detergent company came in with 18-wheelers filled with washing machines and did people's laundry. You remember that? And they did it here, too, in Harvey, and Ike and Harvey. And it's like, okay, the skeptic says, well, they're selling detergent. They got their brand all over it, TV cameras picking it up and all this. The non-skeptic says people want clean clothes. Maybe it's not the top of the list. Maybe drinking water is, but clean clothes are on the list. And that's what this company does. And that, see what I'm saying? And it's like there are creative ways to help that nobody's thought of yet, that nobody's thought of yet. And how would it be if you could consider yourself the person, the being, the godling, who came to this earth at this time to be the conduit for ideas nobody's had? Not just ideas for how you can make a buck, build a business, and become famous, but ideas for how you can help a suffering world. How would that be? Imagine yourself as that, and all of a sudden you sit up straighter, and all of a sudden it's like your life has meaning and purpose. And when your feet hit the floor in the morning, it's, yeah, I've got something to do more than just pay bills till I die. So this is the practical point of this whole mystical thing. And so next week, a little more on her, then concluding on the 29th, and then starting in November and December, we're going to go through some previously unpublished material of Ernest Holmes that's found in the book called Ernest Holmes at Asilomar, which is a transcription of talks that he gave 1954 through 59 at this conference, wherein he says, and all I can tell you is I've been reading Ernest Holmes for just almost 50 years, okay? And I'm seeing things I didn't know he thought, I didn't know he said, because he's giving talks not just to a room full of the general public, but he's giving talks to ministers and kind of his inner circle of people, and he's saying some phenomenal things, most of which I agree with, actually. And so I want to share that with you, and I think it'll be a nice trip through the Thanksgiving and into the Christmas holidays and so on to see what he says on these different subjects and how we can employ it. So right now, let's know there is one life, one power, one presence. We're going to call it for this morning the Transcendent Fact. It's transcendent because it's beyond everything that is assembled in its name. It's greater than the sum of its parts, this transcendent fact. And the fact of the matter is, each one of us is an expression of it, not a diminution of it, but the wholeness of it, like a hologram. Each one of us is the whole, expressing at the level of the name we wear, the personality that we've built, the mind that we use, and the choices we make. Each one of us an expression of the one. So through us now are moving, brilliant, creative ideas for standing as a pillar in the temple, for supporting the greatest good for the human species and all life everywhere, starting right where we are, using what we already know. I affirm and know for each one of us that in the week to come, the sense of self deepens and widens. We feel ourselves to be in the presence of this amazing life, and we listen to it, and we watch it, and we smell it and taste it and touch it with our hands. We engage all the senses to be reminded of the I am becoming that each one of us is, for this knowing and its manifestation in form everywhere we turn. I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this service. Thank you for your love, your energy, all the support that you give to us in this center through your presence and through your monetary donations. It is because of what you give to us that we can be here for you, and we love being here for you. So thank you so much for everything that you give. And our usher make their way to the back. Oh, sorry, I didn't say it. Okay. As our usher makes her way to the back, I invite you all now to say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
Did my job. Now I get to do the other part of the job, and I didn't bring my glasses with me, so I'm hoping I can blow this up enough to see it. I saw this on Facebook this morning, and I will put it on our Facebook. I got it from Cece.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, and it kind of speaks to something that I think about a lot. Joy is a quality of God. Therefore, joy is a quality of you. Please make room in your life for joy. And I say it every day because it's important. Having that moment of joy where whatever, it's hope. You know, it gives you what you need to carry on in the midst of the mess. So I saw this morning. Even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair. Not because I have my head in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return the gift. And that is Robin Wall Kimmer. It's Kimmerer. She wrote Braided Sweetgrass, if anybody knows what that is. And if you don't know what that is, you can look it up. But that's kind of my ideas. Like, I'm going to choose joy over despair. Because in despair, nothing gets done. Yeah. So I'm going to choose joy, and I'm going to get some stuff done. And I'm going to, I'm going to work local and treat universal. Yep. So, universal. So let's do that now. I'm going to invite you into the consciously sacred. We live in the sacred all the time, but I am inviting you to consciously step into the sacred by knowing that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. We are divine channels for that presence, for that power, for that love. It is through us that that love comes into this world. And what is extremely important in knowing that we are channels for this love is to let it flow through us. It is not our job to hold this love. It is our job to give it away recklessly. To give all of the kinds of love, the divine love and the parental love and the romantic love and the friend love away recklessly. Spend it as if it was infinite, because it is. You are tapped into an infinite source of love. Let it flow and watch the good that it does for you and for everybody that it touches. And that is what I am knowing for this world today. The reckless spending of love from an infinite source. And I am grateful to know this source. I am grateful to be a channel for this source. I am grateful to know that each and every one of you are channels for that infinite source of love. And I'm grateful for a teaching that teaches me who I am, what I am, and what I can be. And that I know the same about each and every one of you. I am grateful for this place. I am grateful for this community. I am grateful for our musicians. I am grateful for our practitioners. I am grateful for our ministers. I am grateful for each and every one of you. I am grateful for this technology. And I am grateful because it's just another word for love. And I release my word into law with love, and so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it. I
it.
trust it.
I trust
I
it.
use it.
I use
And
it.
I love it.
And
And so it is.
And